So thank you for tuning in. My name is Dave Ursay, and the goal of this channel is to make bread baking easy and accessible to those who maybe have thought about it but wasn't sure where to start, or maybe were a bit intimidated by the process. And today we're going to make a simple yet really popular peanut butter bread. All right, so for this we're going to start with 2 cups of flour. And flour is one thing you're going to want to measure by volume. So I have my scale here. 1 cup of flour is 120 grams. So I'm just going to put this on here. Reset it to 0. Let me just move this down just a little bit so you can see. So we're going to essentially fill this up with 240 grams of all-purpose flour. There's lots of different flours that you can choose out there, but we're going to use all-purpose. Again, by measuring by volume, it's not the best way to go because you can pack a lot of flour densely, so you might accidentally pack more flour in. So measuring by weight is going to be much more accurate. Okay. So we have 240 grams of all-purpose flour, so I know that's exactly 2 cups. And that's essentially the only thing I'm going to kind of measure by weight here. So I'm going to add that to the bowl. I've pre-measured out 4 teaspoons of baking powder, so I'm going to add that in. Half a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 cup of sugar. And I like to mix the dry ingredients before adding the wet ingredients, just to make sure everything's combined, distributed equally, such that when the wet ingredients come into play, the milk and the peanut butter, it'll have a chance to interact with everything equally. So I'm gonna give this a stir. So next I'm going to get a 1 1/3 cup of milk, which I've pre-measured here, and I'm going to microwave it first as is before combining it with the peanut butter. The peanut butter will mix a little bit better once you heated up the milk just a little bit. So I'm going to start with like about a minute here on the microwave. And again, I start with this because I think there's so many different flours, and there's a couple different types of yeast, and there's a lot of things kind of pulling for your attention. So I think this is a really good beginner bread. As you'll see, it's pretty low key in terms of maintenance and setup. You don't have to wait for it to proof or to rise. And while that microwave is going, I'm going to preheat the oven to 325. So once that milk is done, we're going to add peanut butter to it, and we're going to have to mix it until the milk and peanut butter sort of combine to make, essentially break down that peanut butter just a little bit so it's not super thick when we add it to the dry ingredients.
A few moments later.
So here's the milk, and I'm going to take a spoon. This is 1/2 cup of peanut butter. I wouldn't recommend crunchy, but smooth, whether it's Jif or Skippy, will work just fine. And every time I've made this for people, they're so impressed, and they've asked for the recipe. I'm like, this is the easiest thing to make. So definitely very popular. I'm going to mix that around, knowing that I'll probably have to put this all back in the microwave too, just to break down that peanut butter a bit more. So you can see like the peanut butter is still pretty intact here. We want to break that down a bit more before adding it. So I'm going to take out my spoon. Let's give it about another minute in the microwave.
One minute later.
looking a bit better. I can see that the peanut butter has been broken up just a little bit here. And I'm just gonna mix this around. I notice now as I stir it, it's much easier to stir. There aren't as many thick parts. Like the peanut butter's kind of been broken down a bit here. So what you're looking for is like the peanut butter will be pretty much broken down. It's gonna be like this brownish tint to the milk. And I recommend temping it before adding it to the dry mixed ingredients. I usually aim for about 110 degrees. I find when it gets too hot, even though there's no yeast in this recipe, if it's too hot, the texture isn't quite where we need it to be. Yeah, see right now it's at about 127, which is pretty hot. So I'm gonna keep stirring it, just give it a little bit of time to kind of cool down. There are other variations if you want to put chocolate chips, bananas, whatever you think you want to add to it. Maybe just add about half a cup to the dough. I'm sure chocolate would go over quite well. I know some of my friends have put Nutella on the finished product, so that's been very popular too.
A few moments later.
Let's see where we are temperature wise. All right, so the milk has cooled off enough to where I think we're good. So I'm gonna take my large bowl here with all the dry ingredients, and I'm gonna slowly add the milk and peanut butter combo, trying to get it covering as much of the flour as possible. And I'm actually gonna save a little bit in the cup here because I wanna first stir, and I just don't want any dry pockets of dough, or sorry, of flour that's not interacting with the wet ingredients at the bottom. So I'm gonna do about half the liquid, maybe a little bit more. I'm still using a Danish dough whisk, that's my preferred, but once we get to the baking part, when we're ready to put it in the oven, I'll probably use a spatula. You can see it has like this nice peanut butter color to it. And when you're mixing, you'll see that, yeah, there is some flour still at the bottom, so really try to make sure you get in there. We want every bit of flour to interact with the milk and the peanut butter. It smells so good right now. And what I like to do is I kind of like find some space at the bottom, and then I just like to pour in the rest of the liquid, and that will really make sure that any flour that's still hiding down there will get a chance to mix with the peanut butter and the milk. I'm looking, double checking the bottom here, just making sure we got everything. Yeah, it looks pretty good. All right, so let me switch to a spatula. I'm just going to continue to kind of combine all the ingredients here. I want it to look a little smoother, but the spatula kind of allows me to get the sides a bit better. So I'd say mix until you have, timing's not the only way to kind of measure. I kind of look for like the consistency, the texture of the dough, and you can see it's starting to get a bit smoother, which is good. So I'm just going to keep going a little bit longer here, kind of folding everything in. The oven's preheated to 325, so I'm gonna take just a 9x5" baking pan, and I'm gonna give it a little spray of easy cleanup here. So it's just, you can use butter, you can use spray, whatever you like, just to create the non-stick we're looking for. And then I'm going to pour what we just mixed together right in here. Alright, so once everything's in there, I just kind of like to take the spatula and kind of smooth it, make sure it gets just a little bit more spread out throughout the pan. And that's it. You just have to bake it now for 1 hour at 325, and we'll show you what it looks like when it's all done.
One hour later.
Alright, so it's been about an hour. The bread is cooling off, pretty much all the way cooled off. The hardest part, I really think, is just waiting for the bread to cool. But as you can see right now when you kind of look into this, so you can see it's like this beautiful golden brown color. When you look at it from the side, it's definitely risen thanks to the baking powder there. And I'm gonna cut into this. Let me just get a knife. All right. Perfect. So you're gonna see it's a pretty kind of a dense bread because of the peanut butter and the milk, but some small air pockets there. So just what we're looking for. And now the best part, to taste it. Sweet, great flavor. Peanut butter really comes through. And that is peanut butter bread.